All right, welcome into Pluto Retrograde 2021 version. So we're going to start moving into some retrogrades here, and we haven't had any retrogrades for a couple of months. So those of you who have watched this channel or who have paid attention to astrology at all know that retrogrades, no matter what planet they are all about revisiting and reconsidering and, sort of reawakening your energy around a particular issue or particular type of energy that you have, depending on the planet, depending on the house it sits in. Okay, so this year, Pluto is going retrograde at 26 degrees Capricorn. So when you look, what does that mean? When you look at your chart, when you look at your birth chart, what house is Capricorn in? What house is Capricorn in my particular birth chart? Now, you can see that in my particular birth chart, Capricorn is in the third house. So we'll talk about each individual house. No matter where it is somewhere on your birth chart. I promise. You have Capricorn in your birth chart, so look for Capricorn around the edge and then look to see what house it's in. The other thing you want to pay attention to is what degree is your sun, moon, rising, or Venus. If they are in 26 degrees, 25 degrees, right there, then this Pluto is going to affect you a lot. So your ascendant as well, sun, moon, rising, Venus, all of those personal planets. You can even kind of throw Mars and Mercury in there too as close neighbors. If anything is in 26 degrees, 25 degrees, those things will be affected because this Pluto goes retrograde at 26 degrees. So pay attention to those planets too. Pluto, 26 degrees, moving backwards. So it's going to, over the next 6 months, it's going to go back a couple of degrees and then it'll go forward. It takes about 17 years to get through each of the signs, right? We have 12 signs around the outer edge of your birth chart, and Pluto moves very slowly. So about 17 years to go through a sign. So I was born with Pluto at the very end of my 11th house. So now Pluto is in my third house, the house of communication. So I'm going to go around the zodiac sign and talk about when you look at your birth chart, you're like, oh, okay, Capricorn, I have in my natal birth chart is in my 10th house. That means you are going to have revisiting this energy of Pluto in your 10th house of career. Now, before I get to the houses, what is Pluto energy? Pluto energy is all about power. Power and control, how you use it or don't use it. There's plenty of people who use power in an inverted kind of way, as a victim, as a passive-aggressive person. Some people use power in a very extroverted kind of way, very obvious kind of way. There's a healthy way of using power and there's an unhealthy way of using power. The healthy way of using power is called boundaries. And it's a way of being able to handle situations and not get yourself completely unmoored by other people's nonsense, okay? So if you have a healthy Pluto energy, then that means you are balanced as it relates to your own sense of power. So you don't feel, and this is not momentary, everybody feels insecure momentarily about things. Everybody feels unmoored, everybody feels, but this is talking about a state of affairs of your life that is ongoing, okay? So if you feel like you get knocked off your pins very easily by a love relationship or by your mother or by a friend who has power issues or issues of very strong Mars energy or anything like that, this is basically over the next 6 months with Pluto in retrograde is a call for you to take a look at your own ability to create boundaries and move yourself away from victimhood, or move yourself away from, being a Bigfoot, sort of bigfooting everybody. Move yourself away from those two extremes and get to a place of where you have healthy power, which is I'm asserting my rights. I'm asserting my sense of self. I'm communicating. I'm saying what I need to say when I need to say it, not letting things build up and then blowing up later. Okay, so I'm going to go through the houses starting with the first house. And wherever you have Capricorn in your natal chart, like I said, I have it in my third house. Pluto will be transiting in my third house, okay, because it's transiting in Capricorn right now. Okay, so in the first house, the first house, the house of self. The houses show you, I feel like the houses are, a little bit unsung, but I feel like they're the most important things in terms of showing you what parts of your life are being impacted. So it's not really, everybody goes, well, Pluto and Capricorn, okay, that's fine. But what house? The houses show you how it's impacting you, not just the energy of it. Capricorn is the energy of work and stability and things like that. But what house? So for example, if you have Capricorn in your first house, especially in the late degrees, especially if you have some solid energy in the first house in the 23rd, 24th, 25th degree. That's where Pluto is transiting right now. So that can be about looking at yourself. Do I have good boundaries? Do I have good work ethic? Do I have the ability to move things forward in my life? Or do I feel like I release and let go of my power in that way and I allow other people to sort of knock me around? My sense of self, is it really solid and stable? Or, when you go into a relationship or go into a certain group of people, do you completely morph into those people? A good example of that would be somebody who, we all do this, I think, growing up because you're still trying to find yourself. But later in life, if you are, somebody who is a free spirit and you're not interested in the corporate world and stuff, and all of a sudden you have, you marry or you have some corporate friends and all of a sudden you start wearing little twin sets and you take up, you sort of become the people that you're around. Okay, you're very much a chameleon. You become the people you're around. That can have some holes in your sense of self. So you might want to look at that. Okay, that's what the retrogrades are all about, is revisiting and reawakening parts of you that need to be more powerful. It can also be about, back or down if you're running roughshod over other people. The second house is the house of values, your values. And, this is what your family gives you, your are you able to also create money? Are you able to also create wealth in your life? What is valuable to you? And if you have Capricorn in this house, chances are that you do have a very solid, grounded sense of what is valuable, because the second house is naturally ruled by Taurus. But if you have Capricorn there, then, you're pretty good at this. With Pluto going retrograde, this can be a sense of loss of power in terms of your ability to create money, or a loss of feeling, not really a loss of power, but feeling like you have a loss of power in terms of, what you find valuable. So you can really get your, something that you've always stood for in your life can really get upended in this energy of, wow, I've always really believed in this, and I've always really, asserted my own power because I believed in this, and it can really be upended in a retrograde. So pay attention to that if you have Capricorn, or if you have, Capricorn in your second house. That is your house of values. Your sense of money, your sense of what money means to you can be upended. You can change your outlook on what money means. Does it mean a lot, or is it something that can be a means to an end, or is it really changing your beliefs, your views on it? And you can also, move away from your family's belief about what is, money and power and things like that. You can really resist, or, kind of back cycle into some other way of believing about money and how you create it or how you don't create it, right? You could be someone who's a total capitalist, and then, you see some impact of what you're doing and you're like, oh, I'm not doing that anymore. Okay. Third house, the house of communication. So you can be someone who has issues asserting yourself. Okay. Issues standing up for yourself, issues, in terms of being too powerful, right? Like you might be someone who just blah, like at somebody, and it's too much. So when Pluto is going retrograde in this energy or in this house, the house of communication, you might be revisiting how you communicate, and that might be something to look at. Can you rework that? Whichever way it goes. Are you feeling that you don't say what you need to say? Are you feeling like you say what you need to say, but no one hears it because you're so busy like yelling at them or something like that, right? Okay. That's the third house. The fourth house is the house of family. So if you have Capricorn in this house, the house of home and family and nurturing, that's the opposite energy of the natural ruler. Natural ruler of the fourth house is Cancer. So when you have Capricorn there, Cancer is mother, Capricorn is father. So when you have Pluto retrograding in the fourth house of Capricorn, of your, right, that's your specific sign that's in that fourth house, this can be a power struggle as it relates to leadership, as it relates to who's in charge, as it relates to how we, communally all, work together. There can be some kind of real battle there. And, the house of home and family in the retrograde, when Pluto goes retrograde, you can feel like a little bit like you're changing your dynamic around what's powerful for you in your family relationships. Okay. Just to back up just 1 second, third house is also the house of siblings. So third and fourth house, especially if you have Capricorn sort of, straddling these two houses, you can have some reworking of family power dynamics. Okay. And it can also relate to your job and your career and who's allowed to have power and control over you, or if you're allowed to have power and control, being sort of pushed into a leadership role. Okay. That's fourth house. The fifth house is the house of children and joy and sex and fun and all of that. And if you have Capricorn here, that's kind of an opposite energy here too, in terms of Capricorn is the house of eating your vegetables, or the sign of eating your vegetables. And fifth house, the house of, no, I want to have reverse dinner. I want to have a chocolate fudge sundae for dinner first, and then we'll go on to the vegetables. We'll get there. But I'm going to do things my way. So this fifth house, when you have Capricorn here, the good news is when you have Pluto in retrograde here, you could really take your power back and really have a lot of fun. Okay, because Capricorn, as your normal ruler of your fifth house, if that's where your Capricorn lands in your birth chart, then you can really be someone who grew up too fast. Okay, someone who was responsible for things beyond their years, making breakfast for yourself at 4 years old and things like that. This is a chance with Pluto going retrograde now in the fifth house, chance for you to recapture your youth, recapture joy and fun. That's kind of a nice placement there. If you have Capricorn in your birth chart in the sixth house, the house of routines and health and wellness, Capricorn is very happy in this house because it understands routine. Capricorn it flows nicely with that energy. In reverse, I think you got a little bit of an issue here, because you might be somebody who is upending your traditional routines, and it might impact your health and wellness. Okay, it might be somebody who you might decide to quit a job. You might decide to stop your fitness routine. You might go on some kind of massively crash diet, some kind of fasting where you're not really paying attention to a regimen, or you're not really paying attention to what your body needs in terms of vitamins and minerals and things like that. Like you're just like, screw it. I'm just gonna go through this crash diet because, I'm going to the beach this summer. I don't know. But if you have that Capricorn in that sixth house, your normal routines, it's likely that you'll, throw caution to the wind and do some kind of crazy stuff. So you might want to balance that out. As with anything, balance is the key. Okay. If you have Capricorn in the seventh house, that's the house of relationships. And with Capricorn in the seventh house, that means you usually do the lion's share or the bulk of the work in relationships, and you kind of like it like that. That could be a sense of power in the way of, I'm always the one that does all the work. I'm always the one who's, taking the kids to school. I'm always the one. I'm always the one. I'm always the one. That is kind of a game, a power game with a person. So with a partner, they might be like, okay, well, whatever. If you want to take the kids to school all the time, that's your deal. There might be some kind of with Pluto in reverse, there might be some kind of shifting in terms of the power, the balance of power in a house. So in your relationships. So people get comfortable with their roles. And so, for example, if you have a fairly traditional relationship where you might stay home and your wife goes to work, or vice versa, your husband goes to work and you stay home, there might be a role reversal there where all of a sudden they lose their job and you have the opportunity to do something really amazing, or you've been building a business and it starts to take off, and that person, you're like, I need your help here. Can you please, not go and do this job that takes you away and kind of, removes the balance from our lives. Why don't you come and work for me? And it's just like a kind of a role reversal there. So how can you balance power in terms of that? In terms of your relationships in general, you may find that, where you worked in one location, in one kind of, this happened a couple of times to me, where I was working for someone at one agency and the next agency, they were working for me. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a woo. So it's almost a little bit of a warning if you have Capricorn in your seventh house, that at some point role reversal can happen. And so you might just want to be really aware of that and how you treat people when you're in the position of power, and how it feels to not be in the position of power. If you treat people badly when you're in a position of power, then be prepared for the karma gods to swoop down on you. The vice versa is also true. If you behave in a way that is a victim, then you're going to be thrust into the limelight of power, and it might require you to quickly become someone of power. So just keep that in mind. If you have Capricorn in the eighth house, in this particular house, the house of death and rebirth and transformation, okay, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. It's about the hard work of things, and it is a little bit, it's simpatico with that energy. Scorpio can be very ambitious and things like that. That's similar to Capricorn. So it kind of likes this house. Pluto likes the house of death and rebirth and transformation. Pluto is the god of the underworld, after all, Hades. So death and transformation, Pluto's like, I got this. Okay. So with Capricorn, if you have Capricorn in that house, you're pretty good at this. Okay. So when Pluto goes retrograde, this is a time for you to really revisit and look at how you handle change. Okay? How have you been handling change in your life? Look back 6 months. What has been going on? And, is this something that you've wanted to manifest? You might get a do-over here because Pluto is pretty at home in that house of transformation. And you might be like, all right, well, I've been, working on the energy of this kind of transformation, and now I'm revisiting this. I'm being reborn, right? Reborn again in this house, this eighth house. Eighth house is very comfortable with change, okay? So you're getting a little bit with this Pluto in retrograde. I mean, Pluto goes retrograde every year for about 5 or 6 months. So if you have Capricorn in that house, you do the work. Happily, you do the work. So it's like when the Pluto energy comes into retrograde, you're like, yeah, studied for this pop quiz. I'm good. Okay. So that's kind of a nice placement to have it. In the ninth house, it's the house of your belief systems. Okay, that is the house of religion and philosophy and higher education. It's sort of what we believe in. When Pluto, if you have Capricorn in this house, Capricorn is the energy of I do my work around my belief system. So right? You like have gone deep. You've done you made the effort to this. Pluto in retrograde can still upend you. Sometimes Capricorn in this house can be very stubborn about I believe a certain thing. And that's the way it's always been, and that's the way it's going to be. And even though you've like gone deep into it, the Pluto energy can kind of spark something new showing up, this whole idea of a new belief system showing up on your path and really changing and transforming you, okay? So that can happen in that house of belief systems where you're like, oh, I grew up Catholic, or I grew up this certain way, and I just took it for granted, and then something shows up, during these Pluto retrogrades that shows you like, I've been kind of stubborn about this, okay? So that's the ninth house, the house of belief systems. If you have Capricorn in your 10th house, that's its natural house. That's where, it is when the year is born on March 21st, that's where Capricorn sits, in the 10th house. And the 10th house is the house of your career, your external life, how people see you create life. And Capricorn is the hard worker, okay? So you could have some massive career change when Pluto goes retrograde. It goes retrograde every year, like I just said. And so you may be like revisiting. This is how you might have to change course. Like it's so hard for you to change course with Capricorn in this area. You may need these Plutonian boom power struggles or things like that to get you to change course. And that's what the universe is trying to help you see is how am I doing career? Maybe I'm doing it I'm too much in a rut, or, and it gives you this benefit look at revisiting what you're doing with your career and where you want to spend your time. Okay. Because that's also the god of time. So if you have Pluto in the 10th house, in the 11th house, that means you have Capricorn in the 11th house. And that means that you have, this is the house of friends and well wishes. And this is the house of, groups and group activity. And so you're really someone who pulls the weight for a lot of people. Okay. And if we're talking about power, we're talking about Pluto going retrograde. That's going to change. All right. If you've been like the unsung hero of something, you're going to be a hero of something. You might get an award. You might get, pushed out to center stage a little bit when Pluto goes retrograde. Okay. You also might come across, you might be releasing friends. You might be gaining new friends. You might be seeing that how you've been doing your friendships. You've been pulling the weight in those friendships. And so that might go away. You might be like, why am I doing this? Okay, so that might go away. And finally, in the 12th house, if you have Pluto in the 12th house, which means you have Capricorn in the 12th house in your natal chart, that means that 12th house is the house of self-undoing. It's the house of escapism. It is the house of running away from your responsibilities. With Capricorn there, that energy of putting in the labor and the hard work and everything like that, I feel like this is somebody who's a workaholic. This is somebody who wants to escape by doing more hard work. So they could escape whatever it is, escape anything. Okay, you could escape relationships, you could escape, you could escape your career advancement or money or something like that just by head down. I'm going to do these kinds of things because I don't want to talk about it. All right. And so when you have Pluto retrograde here, that could change this dynamic quite a bit, where you've put your head in the sand. This could force you to pay attention to what's going on and force you to assert some power here. And, you have Capricorn there. So you should be able to do it. But sometimes this is the house of some of excesses. So even if you are a good hard worker, when the chips are down, you might work yourself to burnout. Okay, you might be somebody who, you know, goes to the mat, and, you know, does overtime and all kinds of stuff, and they just really burn themselves out. Mostly because they don't want to feel their feelings about their career, or they don't want to feel their feelings about their boss. So they don't want to, you know, have power. They don't want to assert power in any other way. They just want to escape. Okay? So when you have that Pluto retrograde, just know that you're having to look it straight in the face. Any kind of excesses, any kind of, you know, running away, escapism, any kind of, you know, addictions or anything like that. Even if it to the outside world, they validate it. Like workaholism is validated. We think they're great. We think people who are workaholics are awesome. Yeah. So it's time to revisit that idea, isn't it? Yeah, it is. So I just want to put together this little video about the individual houses. And just to reiterate, okay, Pluto is going retrograde, 26 degrees Capricorn. So in order to find Capricorn, in order to find this placement in your chart, the transit, look where Capricorn is in your zodiacal wheel, in your own personal birth chart. That's where Pluto is. Look at 26 degrees. Is there another planet there? We could talk about aspects later, but this is just about the houses and your particular placement in the houses. All right. So thanks very much for watching. If you like this kind of content, please like, subscribe, and share. If you have questions, please drop a comment below. If you have other questions about astrology or you want me to answer them, please drop a comment below. All right. Thanks very much, guys.